shoot me. Sorry.
Another personal tragedy for actor Marlon Brando. His 25-year-old daughter, Cheyenne, has committed suicide at her home in Tahiti.
Fate always seeks balance. For every spotlight that blessed the parents, a shadow fell upon the children. And so, the same destiny that gave the world its brightest stars quietly took its toll on those who shared their names.
Diane, will you demonstrate, please, with this?
Sure, Dad, but listen closely. Before the tear tape, like so.
Christian Brando, the son who inherited the storm. Being Marlon Brando's son was never a blessing. It was a lifelong sentence. Christian Brando grew up between privilege and chaos. His father, already a legend, was distant and unpredictable. His mother, Welsh actress Anna Kashfi, divorced Marlon when Christian was still a toddler. Their custody battle dragged on for years, turning the boy's childhood into a war zone. By his teens, Christian drifted into rebellion, drinking, fighting, and struggling with his identity. He once said, "The family's a mess. None of us are normal." In 1990, his name exploded across headlines. His half-sister Cheyenne's boyfriend, Dog Drollett, was found dead in Marlon Brando's Mulholland Drive mansion. Christian admitted involvement in a shooting incident, but maintained it was an accident, a heated argument that turned tragic. The case exposed the dysfunction of the Brando family. Cheyenne, pregnant and fragile, testified that Dag had been abusive. Marlon wept in court, pleading for mercy for his son. Christian was sentenced to 10 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter. He served nearly 5. When he was released, he tried to rebuild his life quietly, working as a handyman and voice actor. But peace never came. In later years, he was drawn into yet another scandal, this time connected to the Robert Blake case, and his health began to fail. Christian died in 2008, at just 49, from pneumonia. He once said he never wanted fame, only his father's approval. It never came. Cheyenne Brando, the daughter lost in her father's shadow. Cheyenne Brando was born in Tahiti in 1970, the daughter of Marlon and his third wife, Tahitian actress Tarita Teripaya. With her dark eyes and quiet beauty, she seemed destined for a peaceful island life. But her father's fame reached even to paradise. She grew up seeing Marlon rarely. His absences became part of her identity. In her teens, she became a model in Paris, glamorous, admired, but increasingly unstable. Friends said she carried deep emotional scars, often speaking of her loneliness and her father's shadow. Then came the tragedy that shattered her world, the death of her boyfriend, Dog Drollett, shot by her half-brother Christian in their father's home. Cheyenne, already battling depression, never recovered. She accused her father of caring more about his reputation than her pain. After giving birth to a son, Tuki, she faced years of emotional turmoil and was hospitalized several times in Tahiti. In 1995, at only 25, she took her own life, a heartbreaking end to a life once filled with promise. Her passing broke Marlon Brando's heart. He withdrew even further from the public eye, saying little about the family tragedies that haunted him. Those who saw Cheyenne in her final years said she had her father's haunting gaze, full of depth and sorrow. In the end, both she and her brother carried the weight of a name too heavy to bear. Dino Martin Jr., the golden son who fell from the sky. He was Dean Martin's boy, handsome, charming, and effortlessly cool. Dino Martin Jr. seemed to inherit everything that made his father beloved: the grin, the voice, the easy confidence that lit up a room. As a teenager, he even followed Dean into show business, forming the pop group Dino, Desi, and Billy, with Desi Arnaz Jr. and Billy Hincha. Their hits, I'm a Fool and Not the Lovin' Kind, made them teen idols in the mid-1960s. But fame, for Dino, was never the goal. The applause felt shallow, the stage too small. He found his true freedom in the sky, joining the California Air National Guard and becoming a fighter pilot. Flying gave him peace, far from the noise of Hollywood. On March 21, 1987, during a routine training mission in his F-4C Phantom jet, Dino's plane disappeared into the San Bernardino Mountains. Rescue crews found the wreckage days later. There were no survivors. Dean Martin was never the same. Friends said the sparkle in his eyes dimmed. The laughter that once filled every room grew quiet. He stopped performing, withdrew from public life, and carried the weight of that loss until his own death. And maybe that's the truest mark of love, when even a legend can't joke his way past heartbreak. Lindsay Crosby, the son who couldn't find his own song. The world knew Bing Crosby as the warm voice of Christmas, calm, steady, timeless. But behind that golden voice was a strict father who ruled his home with military precision. Lindsay, the youngest of Bing's 4 sons from his first marriage to Dixie Lee, grew up in a house where love was earned, not freely given. He spent much of his life chasing approval that never came. While his father's records played in every home in America, Lindsay struggled with depression and the quiet ache of not being enough. He tried acting and singing, even appearing in westerns and small television roles, but the comparisons were relentless. Every note, every gesture, measured against the legend who had raised him. When his mother died in 1952, Lindsay was only 14. Her passing deepened the silence in the family, and that silence followed him into adulthood. By his 40s, financial troubles and a failing marriage had taken a heavy toll on him. On December 11, 1989, Lindsay Crosby's life came to a tragic end at his home in Calabasas, California. He was just 51. Those who knew him said he was gentle, funny, and kind. A man who carried too much sadness in too quiet a heart. Sometimes, even the softest voice in the world can echo too loud at home. Dennis Crosby, following the same path. Dennis Crosby was his brother's reflection, charming, soft-spoken, and burdened by the same impossible legacy. As one of Bing Crosby's twin sons, Dennis grew up in a world where discipline came before affection, and perfection was the family's silent rule. Like Lindsay, he tried to find his own voice through music, performing briefly with his brothers as the Crosby Boys. But audiences saw only Bing's sons, never Dennis himself. When the spotlight faded, he turned to family life, raising children, and searching for meaning beyond the fame he never wanted. Yet the weight of that famous name and the loss of his brother Lindsay 2 years earlier never left him. Behind the polite smile and calm manner, Dennis carried a deep, private sorrow. On May 4, 1991, Dennis Crosby's life came to a heartbreaking end at his home in Novato, California. He was 56. Among those he left behind was his daughter, actress Denise Crosby, who would later say that the family's pain was something she spent years trying to understand. The Crosby family gave the world joy, but it came from hearts that knew too much sorrow. Even the happiest songs, it seems, are written in minor keys. Gary Crosby, the one who spoke the truth. Gary Crosby, the eldest of Bing's sons, chose a different path. Where his brothers carried their pain in silence, Gary turned his into words. In 1983, he published his memoir, Going My Own Way, a book that broke one of Hollywood's oldest rules: never talk about the family. In its pages, Gary described a childhood ruled by fear and perfectionism, a father who could charm the world but not his own children. He wrote of strict discipline, emotional distance, and the loneliness of growing up in a house where music filled the rooms, but warmth did not. It wasn't revenge, he said later, it was release. The book caused a public scandal, dividing readers between disbelief and sympathy. But for Gary, it was the first time he felt truly free. He battled alcoholism for years, struggled to build an identity that wasn't defined by Bing Crosby's shadow, and eventually found peace in honesty. Gary died in 1995 at the age of 62, after a long fight with lung cancer. He left behind no bitterness, only the quiet proof that sometimes the bravest thing a Hollywood child can do is tell the truth. Diana Barrymore, the daughter of a legend, lost to the same storm. The Barrymore family was Hollywood royalty, elegance, brilliance, and tragedy woven together. Diana Barrymore, born in 1921 to actor John Barrymore and poet-playwright Blanche Ulrichs, pen name Michael Strange, arrived in a world where the spotlight was a birthright. She inherited her father's magnetic presence and, sadly, his self-destructive fire. Hollywood welcomed her as the next great Barrymore. Studios promoted her beauty and charm, calling her the new American princess. But behind the polished smile was a young woman drowning in loneliness. Her father's fame had faded into scandal and alcoholism, and Diana carried both his legend and his wounds. She struggled through the 1940s with addiction, failed marriages, and a deepening sense of despair. Her 1957 autobiography, Too Much, Too Soon, told the story with brutal honesty. A haunting portrait of a woman who grew up too fast in a world that only loved her reflection. Just 3 years later, on January 25, 1960, Diana Barrymore's life came to an early end in her New York apartment at the age of 38. The cause was reported as acute intoxication, a tragic echo of her father's own decline. The newspapers called it a sad end to a golden life. But those who knew her said it differently. She was just another child who never got the chance to be one. Shawn Flynn, the son who went searching for himself. Shawn Flynn had the smile, the swagger, and the name. Son of Errol Flynn, Hollywood's most charming rogue, and French-American actress Lily Damita. But where his father sought adventure on screen, Shawn went looking for it in the real world. He wanted to prove that courage wasn't a performance. It was something you lived. From an early age, people compared him to his father. The same grin, the same reckless charm. Shawn acted in a few films in the early 1960s, even starring in Son of Captain Blood. But Hollywood couldn't hold him. He wasn't drawn to fame. He was drawn to freedom. While other Hollywood sons followed scripts, Shawn followed the wind. He left behind red carpets for war zones, becoming a photojournalist during the Vietnam War. He carried a camera instead of a sword, documenting the chaos and courage that others preferred to ignore. Each click of the shutter was an act of defiance, his way of saying, "I am my own man." On April 6, 1970, while covering the conflict in Cambodia with fellow photographer Dana Stone, Shawn disappeared after their motorcycles were stopped on a rural road near Kampong Cham. Their cameras were later found, but neither man was ever seen again. Friends said Shawn wasn't reckless, just fearless, driven by a need to face the truths his father only pretended to confront on screen. To this day, no one knows what became of him. Some believe he was captured and executed by Khmer Rouge forces. Others whisper that he chose to vanish, leaving behind the burden of his name. Maybe that's fitting, for a man who wanted to write his own ending, even if the world never got to read it. And in a way, he did, because every legend deserves a mystery. And Shawn Flynn became one of Hollywood's most haunting. Ricky Nelson, the star who fell too soon. Ricky Nelson was born into fame, the child of Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, America's perfect television family. By the time he was a teenager, he was already a rock star, adored by millions. With hits like Poor Little Fool and Travelin' Man, he became one of the first teen idols of the rock and roll era, a clean-cut face for a restless new generation. But behind the spotlight was a man who craved authenticity in a world built on illusion. He wanted to be more than the kid from TV. He wanted to make real music, live a real life. And for a time, he did. By the 1980s, he was performing with the Stone Canyon Band, bringing a more mature country rock sound to his devoted audiences. But on December 31st, 1985, tragedy struck. His Douglas DC-3 aircraft caught fire mid-flight while en route to a New Year's Eve concert in Dallas. It crashed near DeKalb, Texas, killing Ricky and his fiancée, along with several members of his band. He was just 45. The tragedy wasn't in how he died, but in how he lived, constantly trying to be seen for who he truly was. Ricky never escaped the image he was born into, but he gave it something rare: truth. Diane Linkletter, the smile that faded too soon. She was the daughter of Art Linkletter, one of the most beloved voices on American television, a man whose laughter filled millions of living rooms. To the public, their family looked picture-perfect: warmth, humor, success. But behind the cheerful image was a young woman quietly struggling to find her own place in a world that expected her to shine just as brightly as her famous father. Diane tried to live up to that image, smiling for cameras, keeping up appearances. But inside, she felt lost. On October 4th, 1969, she fell from the 6th-floor window of her Los Angeles apartment. The news shocked the nation and left her father devastated. In the days that followed, Art Linkletter, heartbroken but determined, spoke openly about Diane's struggles and the growing dangers facing young people, including the rise of drugs and social pressure in that turbulent era. His words helped spark a broader conversation about mental health, responsibility, and the hidden weight of fame. He would often say later that Diane's story was not about scandal but about sorrow, a reminder that pain can live quietly even in the happiest homes. Her story became a lasting symbol of the hidden cost of fame, how even the brightest smiles can hide the deepest shadows. Stephen Bogart, the man who couldn't escape the frame. Imagine growing up knowing your father was Humphrey Bogart, the man every man wanted to be and every woman wanted to love. Stephen did, and for him it was both pride and prison. He was only 8 when his father died of cancer in 1957, but the world never stopped reminding him who he belonged to. Every headline, every rerun of Casablanca or The Maltese Falcon whispered his father's name, an echo he could never quite silence. Stephen struggled for years with depression and addiction, trying to find a version of himself that wasn't just a reflection of Humphrey Bogart. Yet, despite the weight of legacy, he found a way to make peace with it. He became a writer and television producer, hosting retrospectives and documentaries about his parents, including Bogart, In Search of My Father, 1995. Instead of running from the legend, he learned to honor it, not as a curse, but as a story worth preserving. In the end, Stephen discovered something his father rarely showed: that vulnerability can be braver than toughness. And through that, he finally stepped out from the frame, not by escaping it, but by learning to live within it. Liza Minnelli, the daughter who danced through the darkness. And then there was Liza, born to Judy Garland, Hollywood's eternal heartbreak, and director Vincente Minnelli. From the very beginning, the world expected her to break under the weight of her last name. But Liza had other plans. She inherited her mother's voice, her father's artistry, and her own unstoppable will. She grew up surrounded by chaos, but unlike so many before her, she turned it into art. Every heartbreak became melody. Every loss became movement. When others ran from their pain, she stepped into the spotlight and made the world applaud it. Her rise was meteoric. At the 26, she won an Academy Award for Cabaret, 1972, a performance bursting with both her mother's raw emotion and her own fierce individuality. Her energy on stage was electric, her vulnerability even more so. Audiences didn't just watch Liza perform, they felt her. But behind the lights, there were shadows. She battled addiction, illness, and heartbreak, yet she never disappeared. Every time the world thought she'd fallen, she came back, dazzling, defiant, unashamed. Her performances burned with joy and sorrow all at once, like someone dancing to outrun the past. Even in her darkest hours, there was that spark, the same fire her mother once carried, but steadier, wiser, and her own. Liza's story isn't tragedy, it's survival. She became everything her mother dreamed of, and everything she feared. A woman who lived boldly, loudly, and without apology. When she sings Maybe This Time, it isn't just a song. It's a promise that even after the curtain falls, the heart keeps on beating. Because Liza Minnelli didn't just inherit Hollywood's legacy, she redeemed it. one standing ovation at a time. Not every Hollywood story ends with applause. Some end in silence, in quiet rooms filled with photographs and old reels of film. But even those who left too soon left behind a truth. Behind every legend was once a child who only wanted to be loved. The lights fade, the echoes remain, because being born into the spotlight is one thing, but surviving it is another story entirely.